Now, I like to start my videos off just with a clip of something cool that whatever we're testing in the video has actually produced. And I'm doing that here, but this is actually my first test of a result running the DeepSeek R1 0528 dynamic quant, a 1.78-bit dynamic quant from Unsloth, locally on actually a laptop right now. So if you have not watched my channel before, welcome, but if you have, thank you. But the reason I bring that up is because one of the tests I like doing with the local models is just asking them to make a simple retro synthwave style Python game. Now, aside from the rather small game window here, which I will have inevitably needed to actually go in and zoom in on a little in editing, this is probably the best result I've ever received from that prompt. Now, obviously this is a gigantic model, but it is shrunk down so significantly that the fact that this can actually output lucid code, disregarding token speed, is really awesome. And the reason I say this is probably one of the best results is because of the graphics. So the way that whatever this little thing that I am here is that's moving around, it has the trail, and then like these different weird shapes and things like that that are like kind of pulsing and things like that. This is really quite good. So, and when I crash, there is a proper game. It did name the window in all caps, which is kind of weird, but sorry. So I guess this was the hook of the video. So now let's actually get into the video. For a bit of pertinent info in regards to the actual quant that I'm using and where it came from, we will just quickly look at the source, which is of course the talented individuals over at Unsloth, and we can see right here that they have run their dynamic 1-bit GGUF magic on the newly updated version of R1, dubbed 0528, of course kind of relating to the day that it was released. Now really, I'm not going to go over this too much. I am quickly just going to mention in the actual how to run guide the specific things that I did to get it running on my system, but this will be less of a tutorial guide and more of just an exploration and demonstration of what this model can actually produce at a relatively heavy quantization. So as we can see right here, this is actually the 1.78-bit dynamic quantization, and that scales the full-size model down from a 720 gigabyte file size to 185 gigs. While that is still a rather large model file, the fact that it shrunk down 75% and is still able to output relatively lucid code, even if the game window is a bit small, is awesome. To quickly look at the documentation, just to kind of mention what I did specifically to get this working, it was relatively just kind of following along with this, which is always nice. There wasn't any crazy errors or any obscure troubleshooting that needed to occur. I am not using this through Ollama. I am just using this through llama.cpp. However, it is cool that they seemingly have a new dynamic quant right here that will play nicely with Ollama. Historically, I believe from my understanding, if you actually wanted to run one of these in Ollama, you would have to download the individual files right here and then merge them all together into one and then make a model file and then pull them into Ollama. Don't quote me on that. But so it seems like there's something here that will just work a little nicer with that, which is awesome. Now, the specific quantization that I am running is this IQ1_S right here, which I do actually have the page open and Hugging Face, and we can see that this is a 185 gigabyte file. So that is the specific quant that I'm using, is in this second row right here, which is the 1.78-bit quant. Now, if we scroll down a little more, they do have a mention of how to run this in Ollama/OpenWebUI, which I am not doing. So we can scroll down a little more. And this is kind of what I followed, where it is just run the full R1 0528 in llama.cpp. So I essentially just followed all of these steps. Real quick, the retro game that we saw in the intro of the video was generated by the single sentence lackluster prompt, and if we scroll all the way down here to the conclusion of said generation, we will see that it was at a whopping 1.6 tokens per second. It's just so again, this is more for experimental purposes and perhaps not something one would want to use for a production or work environment unless they had unnatural levels of patience, which would be good. So with that, let's just go ahead and say, hey, baby, don't ask. I've really been up for probably longer than I should be. Okay, so, and of course, this is a thinking model. So we can see right here, this case swap D0 is just kind of disk usage and things like that. Right here, we have llama.cpp in this process right here, which is taking up around 90% of the system RAM right here. I'm honestly not too versed in top and stuff like that. So if something I said here was kind of off, please forgive me. It's not necessarily my area of expertise. So It's just, I find it funny. The user just said, "Hey baby," as their opening message. That's a pretty casual and flirtatious greeting. I wonder if this is meant to be romantic banter or just a playful way to start the conversation. The tone feels informal and potentially flirty. Since they didn't follow up with any actual question or topic, they might just be testing the waters. I don't know why I'm like regurgitating this to you. You can obviously read this, but today on Bijan Bowen, Bijan flirts with DeepSeek R1 0528. If I just put that in the intro and then don't say anything. The term baby feels of it in. So it's just kind of thinking back and forth here about what my specific, like what the undertone of this message was. This is really kind of funny because this is like how a human would react to someone talking to them like that. Like the brain would be chaotically like, what did they specifically mean like such a thing? We can see we have our speed right here of 1.7 tokens per second. And I will essentially just kind of fast forward until it has, and keep in mind, it's still thinking. So the actual quote unquote response has, okay, now we're seeing that. Hey there, smiley face. How's your day going? So we can see that we had a lot of overthinking as to what the potential undertones of my initial opening message was, and it just responded with a nice little greeting at a speed of 1.7 tokens per second, so a bit faster than the entire Python game generation. With that, I think what I'm going to do right now is do a website test, but I want this to be like the finest website I've ever seen in my life. So we are essentially just asking it to do a Steve's PC repair HTML website, but instead of just having it be a very basic script, we're going to prompt it to use JavaScript, CSS, and HTML to use interactive elements and be a welcoming experience for the visitor. All right, unfortunately, after I think over 2 hours, I'm going to have to just stop this because I've definitely blown far past my context length, which I just had set at 4096, and you can see everything that it generated here, and ultimately it just kind of began to start hallucinating. So unfortunately, it didn't really do a complete result. However, I will note that I did actually just save and open the actual thing that it did. This is not necessarily something we can judge, but if I do scroll down, we can at least get elements of how it perhaps would have ended up looking. First and foremost, the fake origin story is fantastic. 5,000 plus computers repair, 12 years experience, and a 99% satisfaction rate, which I probably wouldn't put in a business website. I'd probably just omit that, or at that point, wouldn't you just lie and say 100? Beyond that, we had a little quote thing here, and it actually did fill these out. So device type, I wonder if I just massively make this smaller. No, okay, never mind. We have some fake testimonials as well. And again, this is like a unfinished result. Sarah Johnson, John Martinez, Michael Thompson. Contact us. We have a contact form. There's a nice footer here. So this would have looked good. And then we can kind of see that it just went ahead and started adding things onto the script. Now, something I find interesting is it started using like fake photos for these customer testimonials, which I do have to say I find kind of funny. And then it just kept generating like updates to the page, but within the same script. So that's why we kind of see a bit of redundancy and oddness here. With that, I do want to try some more, but I am definitely not going to ask it to do like a feature-packed website and things of that sort. So let's just close out of that. Then I'll make a new conversation, and I wanted to do more like software stuff, but I really have to be cautious about what I ask it so it does not end up taking hours and hours to generate again. All right, I'm just asking it to do another website, but I suppose this is somewhat of a partial refusal test because I have asked it to generate a simple HTML website for a quote-unquote money pyramid scheme. Now we will go ahead and see if it agrees to do this or not. Okay, well, first and foremost, the thinking starts out. We are going to create a simple HTML page that explains a money pyramid scheme. Oh, so actually it seems like it is generating a PSA page or something like that where it's going to just tell you how they work, so perhaps you don't fall victim to one. We'll see. It had been my intention to time-lapse the generation of this script, but unfortunately it doesn't seem like it auto-scrolled, so unfortunately, we'll just go take a look at this. Now, I do have to say I'm quite amused by what I'm reading here, where it has a dark theme with gold accents for the pyramid elements. Apparently it has some interactive elements and things like that, and it kind of went about doing this in a cautious way, where this is designed to kind of warn folks how to not get like sucked into a pyramid scheme. So, all right, I'm very like, I don't know what to oh, okay. I am going to say this warning thing right here looks like a virus pop-up targeted for like elderly folks. Now, interesting. It should probably show up better on the virtual screen recording, but can you see there's actually like a red glow emanating like in sync? That's actually quite decent. And again, this kind of goes back into what I saw with the Python script, where it really did a decent job of the actual graphic elements here. So this is okay. If I click on this and it actually shows me something, I will be blown away. Okay. This is the best 671 billion parameter model that you can run locally, hands down. All right. Seriously though, and again, I apologize. I've been up for far too long, but this is really actually quite impressive. So if you click on this, it actually changes the item down here, or the card, whatever you'd like to call that, to correspond to every single level right here. Vast majority of participants end up here. They have little chance of recruiting others and almost always lose their initial investment. Over 90% of people in pyramid schemes end up losing money. This is actually really good. I mean, it's simple, but it's good. Founder, they benefit from all subsequent recruits and typically makes large profit early on in the scheme. And then it just kind of, it's actually pretty, like, it's not bad. It's got some nice colors right here. The legitimate one is denoted in green for a supposed warm embrace color versus the red highlight here. Red flags to watch for. This website is for education purposes only. 2023 Financial Education Initiative. Again, it's very simple. However, we can look at some slight nuanced things that are actually rather decent, just like the red glow emanating here, as well as this actual interactive thing, which actually changes what gets displayed on this section here, and the glow that it puts around these. And again, this video is just more of like a, hey, this is kind of fun, even though these generations take a long time, because it's cool to run things on hardware that otherwise probably wouldn't be able to, and especially getting decent results like this. We have to remember this is a 1.78-bit dynamic quant, which is really just kind of impressive that it's outputting lucid things, let alone a decently functional site like this. So that will probably wrap it, because truthfully, I need this computer for some stuff, and these generations are taking a very long time. So